And good evening and welcome to the November 24th meeting of the Murfreesboro City School Board. We're glad to have you with us, whether you're here or whether you're watching us on television. But at this time, we'd like to ask you to please stand. We have Mr. David Lockett, 6th grade teacher from Mitchell Nielsen, who will lead us in our pledge, followed then by our moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now our moment of silence. Thank you. Thank you, David, very much. You have in front of you our agenda for the evening. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Phillips. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposition, and there is none. All right. Dr. Gilbert, communications.
Good evening, Board. It's good to see you way over there, and happy Eve before Thanksgiving Eve. Thank you for being here. We have several communications, really announcements about events that will be happening. Black Fox students will be performing for the annual downtown Christmas tree lighting on the square. That will be December the 4th. And then on Monday, December the 7th, the school board will be hosting the city council on its first tour of the schools, and I will be getting you more information about that, but we have invited the council and also the mayor and the city manager. On the 8th, the Family Resource Center will be hosting the Christmas Marketplace at Bradley Academy. On the 13th, which is a Sunday, we have the annual Christmas parade, so hope to see you all at the Christmas parade, ready to roll. And then on Thursday, the 17th, we have our field trip to MTSU to see the Blue Raiders beat Belmont. And those are your communications.
Thank you, ma'am, very much. Consent items. See those in front of you. Do I have a motion to approve of the consent items?
So moved.
Thank
Second.
you, Ms. Bernier and Dr. Brown for a second. Any question, comment? No. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? And there is none. All right. Action items.
Okay, you have before you on second reading a new board policy STU 64, sudden cardiac arrest prevention policy. This policy is presented to the board due to a new state statute that was enacted by the legislature that goes into effect starting January 1. It was enacted under Public Chapter 325. The purpose of this legislation is to inform and educate coaches, youth athletes, and their parents, and require them to learn the signs of sudden cardiac arrest, and to require removal of youth athletes who appear to have symptoms of sudden cardiac arrest from play or practice at the time of the symptoms, to require a youth athlete to be cleared by a licensed healthcare professional before returning to play. And this is applicable in situations where a school system has what is defined as school youth athletic activities, which means that you have children under the age of 18 engaging in an organized athletic game or competition against another team, club, or entity, or in practice or preparation for an organized game or competition against another team, club, or entity. School youth athletic activity does not include an activity which is entered into for instructional purposes only, or for an athletic activity that is only incidental to a non-athletic program or lesson. And so this policy is based straight off of that state statute. And I did make some of the changes, the revisions that the board had asked on the second page at line 86, where it talks about any discipline that would be imposed on a coach if they violate the policy and statute. I included that at a minimum, the following penalties would be issued. And that gives the board the flexibility to issue more severe penalties. And I added a sentence stating that the severity of the disciplinary action may depend on the circumstances. So to give more flexibility in what actual discipline is imposed. And then the last point there, 11, I added that says the athletic director or designee shall maintain a database of all coaches that have been disciplined for a violation of the policy.
And this is second reading.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve, and then we'll have any questions? To approve on second reading?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Phillips. Second. Thank you, Dr. Brown. Now, are there any questions? Ms. Renier?
Ms. Baker, was it determined from the state statute that we could not, I know you have, this is at a minimum, these penalties, but we talked about removing that second violation and bumping up the third violation to permanent suspension?
The state statute says that at a minimum you have to impose those disciplines, and I worded it in such a way that you could jump to that second level depending on the situation. I left the first level in there to give you that flexibility if the circumstances were such that you would want to only go to the first level of discipline.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Any other questions, Ms. Phillips?
Mine was semi-related. Were you able to get information about, do their children who are perhaps on ADHD medication have to have some kind of special release from their doctor to participate in this kind of activity? Or
No, I did not find information regarding that. Really, the child would be able to participate in the activity if their parents believe that they can. And if there's a health concern, they would need to let the coaches know.
Okay. I was just thinking in basketball, there's so much running, and so
Right.
I was just concerned. Do any of the neighboring school systems have any policies regarding your participation if you're on medication that might affect your heart?
I do not know. I'd have to research that issue.
If you have time, I would appreciate finding out more about that. I just, in the best of circumstances, nothing would ever happen. But I would want to make sure we were protected, and we did everything we could to protect the child on certain medications. So
I would assume, and somebody can tell me if we're different, but I would assume that anybody that participates will have to have some kind of a physical and some kind of release from medical stating that they're physically fit. That's typically what has to be done.
I know in the middle and high school sports that is required. I'd have to find out from Mr. Ringstaff if we use that TSSAA sports physical form. But I know in middle and high school that if it's one of those sanctioned sports, you have to have those physicals submitted.
I guess I'm surprised to find that we may not. But
I can't imagine, but Dr. Brown?
I know that I've completed a lot of those forms for Murfreesboro City School students. So I'm assuming that it is a rule. Without Mr. Ringstaff here, I can't say that 100%, but I think it's the policy of the Murfreesboro City Schools that they have to have a physical signed before they can participate in sports, cheerleading, any type of organized activity.
that's good to know.
Okay.
But is it a policy or an administrative directive?
Mr. King?
I've thought about this a lot since we went over this last meeting. And specifically, if you look at Part 6, it's line 53 and 54. Any athlete who passes out or faints shall be removed from activity. Well, that's a given. What I've thought about, I keep coming to the, and this says any athlete, the first thing they'll do is, Coach, I don't feel good. If before they pass out and faint, and I keep thinking, I put myself in the position of the coach or the volunteer teacher. The athlete comes up to me and says, Coach, I don't feel good. At that moment, what do? Do I sit him down and I take the kid out of play, now what do? Who do I report this to in the middle of the game? And I guess my question is, do we have any procedures, not policies, but procedures that would help guide the coach or volunteer coach? Okay, now the kid tells me he does not feel good. Now what do I do to make sure he gets proper care? And then not bring him back until he's been cleared. But at that moment when the child walks up and says, Coach, I don't feel good. Because everything I've ever read and known of these instances, that's the first thing that happens is the kid says, I don't feel good. And that's what I don't know is what do we have when that happens?
I can get with Ralph and with Kelly and come up with an AD.
I would hope that Ralph would go over that in indoctrination and the beginning of the season with all coaches and those that are involved.
Like I said, when we're looking for something specific. And I did talk to Representative Brian Terry, and when this came up, this had wide support from coaches statewide. So this was kind of I'll call it a grassroots type of effort that came into being. So this is something that was brought to them.
Okay, any other questions, discussion?
Okay, good.
All right, all those in favor say aye, please.
Aye.
Any opposition? We are passed on second reading. Thank you, Ms. Baker. All right, revenue report. Mr. Anderson, I guess.
Good evening, Board. In your packet is the information through the 33% of the year through the first 4 months. We're obviously at this time in the red because we always are, because we don't have any holiday sales coming in, and zero property taxes are collected by this time. So we always run deficits at this point. Overall, our revenue pictures were at 23.8%. Last year we were at 23.5%. Our sales tax numbers are looking positive. They're up about $272,000 over last year, which is obviously good information for us at this time. We're glad to see that. So revenue on the sales tax basis, the city is doing very well, and the county is on collecting of a sales tax. So we're glad to see that, and of course we anticipate that the increase will be there also for our property tax collections when they come in. Expense-wise, we're at 28.3%. Also, last year at this time we were at 26.7%. There are some additional expenses, as always, as we get started beginning of the year. And we have taken care of the additional expenses, as you know, for like the $200,000 we had to spend at Northfield for the air conditioning system, and we had some other expenditures that are hitting us on some of the buildings that are starting to age a little bit on parts that we can't get, so we have to replace. So we're looking at all those things and keeping a close eye on those. When I get to the enrollment report, you'll understand what I'm talking about. Our growth is, we're over 3% in growth, therefore we do anticipate growth money this year again like we did last year. Obviously not quite as much because last year we grew over 600. This year we're up over 300. So we do expect a substantial amount of money at that time, which will help the overall budget. Does anyone have any questions on where we are at the 33% part of the year?
Any questions on the financial report? Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Personnel?
Your personnel report is there. It's your basic personnel report of who has been hired and who has taken a leave of absence. And I'm assuming, Gary, that you're going to refer to the hiring when we get to the PTR on. Okay.
Okay, on the enrollment report, we are up 317 students over the end of last year. We're at 8,380, counting all students in the district. Our attendance rate is still at 98%, which is just amazing. Our pupil-teacher ratio in K through 3 is 19.04, and in 4 through 6 at 21.48. I'd like to draw your attention, though, to scales. And if you go over to the column right in the middle, the green column has 20.7. Okay, the ratio has to be 20.49. So we're over that ratio, so we have already hired a teacher to get us under that ratio of the 20.49. So Scales had an additional teacher added to their school to take us where we need to be on that. Otherwise, we're experiencing growth in the typical areas. There's a lot of homes that are being constructed in the Scales and Overall Creek area, and Reeves Rogers area is where we're seeing the most growth. And also John Pittard is getting a lot of turnover growth in that area. So if you look at the numbers in the buildings, you can see that John Pittard, when you go to the very last column, total in that school is 969 students. The building capacity is roughly 1,000. And then you look at Scales, and they're at 936, and their building is also at 1,000 capacity. And that's part of the rezoning effort that we did to alleviate these situations as we move forward.
Okay, Ms. Phillips?
Mr. Anderson, how are we utilizing that other teacher? Was there a classroom available, or?
No, when this happens after the beginning of school, then basically we had to hire another teacher because of state law. So at that point, it's left up to the principal how they want to utilize that. She chose not to divide the students into another classroom, but have this teacher that would float between the classrooms.
Okay.
What grade level?
Kindergarten.
Okay. Ms. Rainier?
I have a question that just hit me that I've been sitting here all this time and never asked. With the average daily attendance percentage, does pre-K count in that, or is it just K-6?
K-6.
Okay, that's what I thought, but thank you.
Well, we talked about Pittard and Scales, but Overall Creek is getting up there pretty close too, aren't they?
Yes, Overall Creek at 857, it also is a building capacity of 1,000, little more, so yes. The pattern we've established in the past, when we opened up Scales, after 3 years, we got close to being max. Opened up Pittard, after 3 years, it got close to being at max, and the same thing's going to happen in Overall Creek. So we're keeping a close eye on that for any additional issues that we'd have. There are obviously our classrooms there, so we're good for right now, but that's why in the plan, the 5-year plan, we have that we need to be building a new school to open up in 2 years roughly, because otherwise we're going to be pushing the issues there. We do not want to get back in that same situation we did at Scales where we had to have those portables. That was 1 year, but we'd like to get ahead of that curve so we don't have to do that.
Got a lot of houses being built, apartments and houses as well out toward Overall Creek.
Yes, sir. Between Overall Creek zone and Scale zone, there's over 500 lots already approved. So we know there's going to be a lot more coming.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions on the personnel report? All right. Do we have anything else that needs to come before this board tonight? Ms. Phillips?
I just want to take a moment and welcome some of our young guests that are in the audience today, Miss Kara Clark and her friend back there. I just wanted to welcome. I don't know what you're doing tonight, but we're glad to see you here. And you chose a good night because we're having a really short agenda tonight.
Well, before we leave, let me wish each one of you a happy Thanksgiving, and all of those that are watching from home, and also a Merry Christmas, and we'll see you back here in January. Any other business? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Phillips. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. Any opposition? And there is none. Thank you, and good night.